Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today I've got something that's pretty exciting, honestly, because quite a ways back I had reviewed a few Jurassic World figures that had come out from a company named Furyu. These were basically found in China and, areas like that. Not really something you see here in the United States, but recently Dino Mike Mac, my good buddy, let me know that there were more of these coming out. I previously had reviewed a Jurassic Park T-Rex as well as the Dilophosaurus. They came out for the Jurassic Park 30th anniversary, but we now have Jurassic World figures out, which, as you can see, if you can kind of make out the head there within the window, and also, of course, the name down there, this is another T-Rex. We have a totally different version of the T-Rex that is now out from Furyu, and I'm pretty excited to take a look at it. The first round of figures weren't incredible, but they were fun for what they are, so I'm very intrigued to check out the two that have now released with this new line. And as you can see, these are basically called Legacy Selection, almost like Legacy Collection from Mattel, but obviously a little different. And again, as far as the packaging goes, you've got the Jurassic World logo. You do have some pretty cool images up here. One shot is Jurassic World, then you've got JP3, and as you move through, you can see you've got the Lost World Jurassic Park, some more Jurassic World with like Dominion and stuff. You've got different logos. You have all kinds of stuff up here, which is pretty cool. Again, obviously giving us that legacy selection, as it pretty much is the entire span of the Jurassic franchise. So I guess that means this could be a JP Rex, Jurassic World Rex. I'm not too sure. But, the packaging looks pretty cool. And again, we do have the window area to check out the T-Rex there, kind of a sneak peek. Over here on the side, you've got a really nice shot of the model itself, but I'm confident the paint apps won't be quite as nice as what we see there. I do recall the first round, the paint apps weren't great, so I'm not expecting greatness again either. But again, you can see the other side basically is the Jurassic World Legacy Selection, and then again some more images from the film, and then here on the back basically just some more info and images back here. So I'm pretty excited to pop this open and check it out, so let's go ahead and do that. So here is our T-Rex, and honestly I must say it's actually a lot nicer than I was expecting it to be. Even as far as the paint apps go, again, it's not incredible as far as the paint scheme and paint application goes, but it's not bad. And obviously at this point we can very clearly see, even though it kind of has more of a Jurassic Park pose, kind of reminds me of the Rex coming out of the paddock as far as the pose goes. I would say that this is more so based on the Jurassic World T-Rex as far as the sculpt goes, because you can see we've got like the scars and stuff, which are, again, something you see on the Jurassic World version of the T-Rex. So when it comes to the Legacy Selection, this and the other figure in the line is Velociraptor Blue, so I guess that means that both are from Jurassic World, and the first two figures they had released a ways back were from Jurassic Park. So, without further ado, let's jump to a closer look and check this out from there. So, starting up here at the head sculpt of the T-Rex, I would honestly say as far as the paint apps go, that's the weakest area for this Rex, would be the head and the face, because there's not a whole lot going on as far as paintwork in this area. But sculpt-wise, it is honestly absolutely awesome. It's probably one of the coolest looking Jurassic Park or Jurassic World style, REXY models that I have seen in a long time as far as the sculpt goes. With a decent repaint, this one could be a killer Jurassic Park style or Jurassic World style T-Rex. But you can see when it comes to the sculpt, it looks pretty good. You've got some decent looking scale detail. Kind of vibrant, maybe slightly washed out in some areas, but for the most part it looks pretty decent. You have basically just a light brown tone for the majority of the face, with some black kind of speckling here and there running along the jawline. You can also actually see some grayish tones applied to the jawline as well. Some more blacks here highlighting some of the osteoderms and stuff. The eye is painted pretty nicely. You can actually see a little variation of color to the eye. You've got a yellow with a black pupil, and also kind of like almost looks like a black speckling there within the eye as well, which is pretty cool. You can see some blacks moving up and over the top here as far as the kind of bumpy scales that we have on the Rex. You see more of that down here on the lower jaw as well. Again, the skin texture looks fairly decent as a whole. Moving here into the mouth, as we obviously have an open mouth look for our T-Rex, you can see the skin stretching there. Looks pretty nice. It's sculpted nicely. Also features kind of like a pinkish tone with a dark wash to help highlight it, and a nice gloss coat. On the inside of the mouth, you can see the tongue sculpted out really quite nicely in there. Again, same style paintwork. Nice gloss coat for that area also. And then if we look at it from the front, you've got quite the visual of the inside of the mouth of the T-Rex, which is pretty intimidating. But again, the detail and paintwork throughout looks really quite nice, as well as, again, that saliva-like look that it has going on. The teeth are also sculpted pretty decently, maybe a little bit ugly up here as they're kind of like sticking together, kind of. But for the most part, I think the teeth look okay. They're also painted with what appears to be like a white, but then they kind of have like maybe like a brown wash that's been applied because they kind of have a dirty look to them. You can definitely see that down here as well. And they as well feature a gloss coat, which is pretty nice. You can also see the eye also has a gloss coat. As you move back, you can see the seam here where the lower jaw connects is really quite obvious. That's one thing I remember from the first round of figures. The seams were really obvious, and we see more of that as you move back here where the neck connects. The seam is not hidden, honestly, at all. It doesn't stick out like a sore thumb, I would say, but it isn't very hidden at all. But as you move back, you can see the skin texture continues to look pretty decent. We do have a little bit more variation of color as we move back here. As you can see, there's basically like some darker tones that have been applied. You can see a little bit of that on the top of the head as well. Again, we've got like those scars and stuff. They're all sculpted out and painted with a pinkish tone, which is pretty cool. You have all kinds of skin detail the entire way through, all the way down even into the throat, again with tons and tons of skin wrinkles. There is a lighter tone that moves along the underside of the T-Rex. One good thing is, as we move back, you can see they did capture the way that the underside of the T-Rex looks or should look as far as the larger kind of scales and stuff that you find on the underside of a T-Rex like this, as far as like the underside of a Jurassic World or Jurassic Park style T-Rex. They did at least capture that, which many companies don't, shockingly. But as you move back, you can see more really nice looking skin texture as you lead into the stomach. I think that area looks quite nice overall. You've got the ribs kind of showing there. More variation of color, as they do have very subtle additions like subtle airbrushing and stuff that you can see with darker tones as you move through. Even a little dry brushing up here on the top of the spinal column. We have more scars and stuff up here on the top, more down here as you move down toward the arm. The arm looks very muscular as you lead down. You've got the fingers sculpted out, and they did highlight the scoots moving over the fingers with a darker tone. You have the nails sculpted nicely, painted with a black, and then also they have like a dry brushing over them, which is pretty nice. Some more wrinkling back here behind the arm as the elbow kind of pushes into the stomach. The seam where the arm is connected is also very obvious though. As you move up, they've got the hip bone sculpted nicely. We can also see they do have the scoots moving over the hip, which is again something that you do see on a Jurassic style T-Rex. Moving down, the muscle definition is nicely displayed in the thigh. You have a few more scars, which they did actually paint out and of course sculpt out. A little more dry brushing, really subtle dry brushing, as well as more subtle airbrushing in that area. Moving down, the seam for the knee is super obvious. That may actually be the ugliest seam on the figure so far, but you've got a really nice calf muscle, big and bulging, and again the scales look really good as you move down, becoming finer the further down toward the foot we go. And then as you lead down into the foot sculpt, I think the foot sculpt is actually magnificent when it comes to a Jurassic Park style T-Rex. I think that looks really nice, and they've also highlighted the scoots moving over the toes again, this time with kind of like a dark tone but applied with like a wash, like a watered down paint, which is pretty cool. And again, you can see the nails sculpted nicely, again painted with the black, given a dry brushing of a lighter tone. We do have dew claws that are sculpted and painted. Again, a seam for where the dew claw was added though. And then as you move up and you lead out into the tail, you can again see just some more really subtle variations of like airbrushing of darker and lighter variations of browns as you move through. I don't really see a striping or anything moving over the back, which I think I would have liked to have seen just a really subtle striping because that's kind of the way she appears, but it's not the end of the world. The seam here for the tail is definitely very obvious, but you actually have to connect the tail when you get the figure out of the packaging, so that's inevitable unless you want to cover that seam up yourself. But again, the tail does come disconnected, which is actually really hard to get on. Like, you really got to shove that tail on to eliminate the seam as much as I have. But as you lead out, the tail does lead up here into the air, again away from the Rex. You can see a really nice curve, slight curve, but a nice one nonetheless. And again, some more extra variation of color as you lead out. Again, even more slight airbrushing that you can see applied moving through the side of the tail. If you take a look at it from the opposing side, you can see again the head sculpt does look really nice as far as the sculpt. A little lacking as far as the paint, but as you move back, you see more of the injuries and scars and stuff here on the Rex, even more as you lead back here. Pretty massive, scars and stuff. I'm not completely familiar with exactly where each and every injury and scar is on the Jurassic World T-Rex, so I can't say for sure if all of these scars are perfectly accurate as far as the way they appear on the Rex in the film, but I will say this one definitely is overloaded with them. Again, the arm is in almost the same position as what we see on the opposing side. The biggest difference on this side is the fact that the leg is trailing, whereas the leg is leading over there, giving us a little bit of a better opportunity to take a look at the stomach, and again, the slight differences in paint application in that area. As you move back, you can again see the hip bone leading down. You've got a slight dry brushing again with a lighter tone over the thigh and some more slight airbrushing. Again, the seam is obvious in the knee. As you move down, you've got a really nice looking foot sculpt. Again, the foot sculpt is really well done. I would say as far as the sculpt goes, this might be one of the more screen accurate Jurassic Park style or Jurassic World style Tyrannosaurs that I've seen. But as you move back up again into the tail, it also looks pretty decent over here as far as the sculpt and paint. Like I said, the body, as far as the paintwork goes, is pretty nice. It's the head that is the most lacking overall, but as far as this figure goes, it's way better than I was expecting. Another thing that's different about this one compared to the previously released Jurassic Park T-Rex that Furyu had released is the fact that this one doesn't have a stand. And in fact, both the Dilophosaurus and the T-Rex last time had a Jurassic Park-like plastic stand underneath. This one doesn't have one at all, but honestly, it doesn't need it. The balance is actually really good on this, which you can see. Again, it stands really, really nicely for the pose. Again, kind of a dynamic pose. As far as a size goes on this one, it is pretty sizable. Lengthwise, if we go from the lower jaw to the tail, just a hair over 15.5 inches, or right around 39.5 centimeters, and you can't really see that from your angle, but as far as the height goes, the highest point would be the tip of the tail, about 8.5 inches, or around 21.5 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon in the Collect Day human being next to our Furyu Tyrannosaurus Rex, and you can very clearly see, again, it's got a pretty good size to it. Definitely a very impressive size. If you can search this one out, I would absolutely recommend grabbing it. Just like based on the sculpt and the size of the figure, it is a really cool one to have. When it comes to a comparison next to the older Nanmu female Rex, you can see they're kind of similar in size, with the Nanmu version being just a little bit bigger. We've also got the older Jurassic Park T-Rex from W Dragon, and as you can see, also very similar in size to this new Furyu version. And if you happen to have the Jurassic World bookend version of the T-Rex, you can see again roughly that the Furyu version is quite a bit bigger. And then for one final comparison, we also have the Sega Jurassic World T-Rex next to this Furyu version, showing you that again, the Furyu version is quite a bit larger. So honestly, this Furyu T-Rex is quite the pleasant surprise. I was not prepared for this one to be as nice as it is. Even if the paint is still a little lacking in some areas, the sculpt I would say is probably one of my favorites I've seen for a Jurassic Park T-Rex or Jurassic World T-Rex in quite a while, and that's really saying something. The pose is very cool, pretty dynamic, but also kind of like that classic Jurassic World T-Rex pose, if you ask me, or Jurassic Park, I should say, because it kind of resembles the Rex breaking out of the paddock, I think. But overall, the pose is awesome. The detail looks pretty nice throughout. The only downside, in my opinion, for the sculpt would be the seams and how many there are and just how obvious they are. But past that point, I think the sculpt is really nice. And for the most part, the seams aren't super distracting. I don't really mind them that much, but some people will definitely take issue with that. The paint apps, though, are a little lackluster. Specifically in the face, they don't look that great. They definitely could have been improved, like at least some darker tones around the eye and maybe a little bit of a darker tone over the top of the head could have helped, but once you move into the body, I feel like the paint apps aren't that bad, and they definitely resemble the Jurassic World T-Rex a little bit better than many other attempts do. So that's a plus. It's just, it's not great. Still pretty nice, but not great. So again, the pose is pretty cool, the sculpt is awesome, and the paint apps are okay, so absolutely worth checking out, worth hunting for. I don't know if I'll be able to find a link to give you guys to find this one quite yet, because it's pretty new. It's just kind of just starting to show up, so I don't know how readily available it'll be on eBay or anywhere like that, but I will try to find a link. If I can't find one though, definitely try searching it out and grabbing one if you can. And of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.